I was what you call a COS. Welcome to Crocs in the Kitchen. I'm not in the kitchen and we are not the Crocs. Today it is just me. I am here in my car and I figured this was a prime time to discuss some more fun stuff about what it was like being 500 pounds and existing in this world. But since Jessica and I are actually about to go on a really, really long road trip, which is one of our favorite things to do, is just to travel around, I figured that it was a good time to talk about what it was like to travel while being 500 pounds. So I said it before, this is a series that I'm going to continue doing about my life at 500 pounds. And I really hope you guys do enjoy these episodes, but let's actually get into the travel aspect of it. So first, let me start off with a little bit of history about traveling with me. When I was younger, my family, we went on vacations just like a lot of other families did. We ended up going a lot to Alabama and Louisiana just because we have family there. We went to like Disney World in Orlando and like Universal Studios on one big trip. Just a bunch of different places that I remember. We even went to North Dakota a couple of times too to visit some friends of my parents. And I thought actually that was a lot of fun. But for me, like I did a bunch of traveling with my family. I remember going on one trip with just my parents. My brother didn't actually come along with us to Toronto. And that was actually like an awesome trip. I actually really, really liked that trip because we ended up going to Chicago and going to Toronto and then back down through Niagara, and it was just an all-around great trip. And I've kind of recreated that trip with Jessica before, actually, which was even more fun because we drove through a bunch of New York that was just absolutely gorgeous at the time. But traveling for me, like I didn't really do a whole lot for a long time. And during that time was when I was really, really gaining a lot of weight. And I just sort of stayed at home and didn't really do a whole lot of anything. And then I met Jessica, and Jessica loves to travel. Like it's one of her all-time absolute favorite things to do is to go and travel to see shows, concerts, whatever it happens to be. And she loves doing that. She especially loves doing that with her mom. And so when we started going out, it was kind of just natural for us to go on a few trips as well. And then when we got married, we even went on more trips. In fact, on the year anniversary of our wedding, we were planning a trip going to Louisville, and I lost my job like the day before I had to leave. That's radio for you. Sometimes you just you show up and your job is gone. But yeah, so traveling has been a massive, massive part of our life. So let's talk a little bit though about what it was really like to travel being my weight. Now I understand, like if you watch like My 600-Pound Life, those people have extreme cases of this stuff. But at the same time, a lot of those people are like normal height. I am not normal height. I am 6'6". And so for me, my height has always kind of offset my weight. I was always a very high functioning fat person, and I could walk around fairly easily. I couldn't necessarily go for extremely long distances, but I could just keep going. I could stop for a little bit, rest here, keep moving along, and keep going. But like I said, when we went to Europe, I walked all around London. I walked all around Paris. And I mean, a bunch of other trips that we've done, like just a ton of walking, and I was able to do it fairly easily. The only time I ever really had major problems was after I hurt my back one time, and it was doing stuff. I bent over to pick something up and I just hurt my back. And we went to New York, like it's in the time frame after that where I was still healing. And that was kind of brutal, but you know, just because we were standing in a lot of long lines for things. And another time was we went to Chicago the day after I got into a car accident. In this very car, actually, somebody rear-ended me, and that was a bit tough because it was just like ow, ow, but we made it work, and we went to a concert that night, and I told the lead singer that was there that I was like, yeah, I was in a car accident yesterday and I still came to this show, still came all this way. I didn't drive that one. We actually took a train for that one, which if you haven't taken a train, that's actually an amazing thing. I know travel is really weird right now, but whenever we get back to some sense of normalcy, try taking a train somewhere. It was actually really, really good. Uh, so that's a nice tip. If you are overweight and you have trouble traveling, find out if you can take a train. It's really comfortable, really laid back, and you don't have to really worry about anything. But yeah, walking around for me was pretty straightforward and pretty easy. Now, cars on the other hand were a little bit different. Now, cars in general for me are pretty bad because I'm a tall dude. It's hard for me to fit into certain things. But when you add on to that with a bunch of extra weight, it makes it really, really difficult. Like, I couldn't drive Jessica's car. Jessica drives a compact hatchback kind of car, and I couldn't drive that car. It was not even a viable option. I couldn't really fit into it, and I don't even think the seatbelt could click for me unless I was in the passenger seat. I had everything laid back and like as far back, or I'm not like laid back, but a bit further back and like in a weird position, and then I could finally click it. It was super annoying, very uncomfortable, and I couldn't do anything about it. So when it came time to buy a car that we knew we could go on road trips, we bought this one. And the reason why we bought this one was because it was well designed for what I needed. I could stretch it back. I could, get enough leg room. I was in a better position for how I was sitting, all sorts of stuff like that. And so getting a car for me was very interesting just because it's not about the size of the car necessarily. It's really about the console design and like all of that kind of stuff, which then leads me to renting a car. Renting a car was an absolute pain and a source of anxiety for Jessica. I'm not joking, a source of anxiety for Jessica, because we could get to a spot and be like, okay, here we go. We rent a car. I don't fit in the car. Okay, well, now I guess we have to upgrade to something, or we have to find the right car. And so it was embarrassing well, not really for me, because I don't really get embarrassed very easily. But it was embarrassing for Jessica to be there and be like, okay, well, I've got to go and talk to somebody now about, swapping out for a different car and making it all work. And everybody was super nice. Nobody ever was like condescending to me or anything like that. But it was still just frustrating because we couldn't just go somewhere and just get a car. There was always my added complication of being my height, being my weight, whatever it happened to be. And so renting the car was just a pain usually. But we finally figured out certain things, certain cars that we could rent and I could still drive and be okay with, which was a lot of fun. But we could never get anything smaller than like a mid-sized car at most, because all the compacts just were outright. Update on that though. Now this car, I've got massive amounts of room that I can sort of stretch my legs out. And I can drive Jessica's car, as we drove Jessica's car to Huntsville, actually. And I drove that entire time. So yeah, the car thing has been a fantastic update for me, just because it's a lot more comfortable to drive around and do all that. Not to mention the added bonus of now I can actually drive both cars, and Jessica can drive this car fairly easily too. So that's nice. That's a great thing. But when I was super fat, I had a lot of problems with that one. It wasn't just as easy as get up and go. Now, for flying, completely different story. I actually really like to fly. I've always been fascinated by airplanes and aircraft, and first time I ever flew, I actually flew to Costa Rica with my church and for a missions trip, and it was amazing. Like, I had a window seat and I was actually able to like look down and stare into the water as we flew over it, and it was a great experience for me. The not great experience was the fact that I had to pay twice the amount as everybody else on my trip because I had to get 2 seats. And that had become a perpetual thing for me going forward after that, because Jessica and I would fly out different places. It didn't really matter where it was. And I would always have to get a seat, because in the airline industry, I am what they call a COS. a customer of size. Now, this generally played out in a couple of different points. One, I always had to buy an extra seat. And actually, even to today, we still buy an extra seat just because it's a lot more comfortable. But I'll get to that in just a second. So I always had to get an extra seat. I always had to get a seatbelt extender. And it was always sort of, once again, not really embarrassing for me because I'm a practical guy. I'm a, fairly utilitarian. And it's like, well, if I need this thing, then I'm going to ask for this thing and I'm going to get it and I'm going to use it. Like, my brain doesn't process anything really beyond that. But for Jessica, she's like, she sees me as I've got to get a flight attendant to come to me, ask her for the seatbelt extender, then she's got to bring me one. All the while, people around me being like, "Oh, that's the fat guy. He needs the seatbelt extender." The funniest part for me, and I know this is funny. I know a lot of people would cringe at this, but it was walking down the aisle, and when people had already been on board, and them like giving me that look of like, "Oh dear God, like this man is giant. I hope to God he doesn't sit next to me." But like I said, I was always a fairly considerate person, and if I ever had to fly by myself, I always had an extra seat next to me. Now, the best part about any of this stuff is the fact that there's a lot of policies now with airlines where they actually will allow you to get an extra seat, and if the plane isn't booked solid, you can actually get a refund for that seat, which has been actually really, really cool. And Jessica and I still utilize that a lot just because of my sheer height. Getting the extra seat in the middle on a 3-seat row is so much nicer because then we can spread out. We've got stuff in the middle if need be. Jessica can stretch out more so she can sleep or something like that. And it works out really, really well for what we try to do. But it's been very, very interesting for me just because there are certain flights that I have gone on where it's been absolutely horrendous, and then there are other flights that I've been on where it's been really, really cool. And generally what happened was because depending on what airline it was, but the different policies that those different airlines have, you can get an extra seat and then you can usually get some type of a pre-board thing. So you can actually get onto the plane first before other people, especially if it's first come first serve, so you just show up and all of a sudden, boom, you're sitting in the front where you got the most leg room, or you're sitting, near the door, so you've got extra leg room or something like that. Leg room for me is the biggest thing. But now that I'm skinnier, I fit in the seats a lot better. I've got less, padding in the back, and so my legs have more room in the front. Works out really, really well for me. So that's been one of the best things, is that flying now has become a heck of a lot easier. Not super easy. It's not like just get on a plane, I sit there and I'm perfectly fine. It's still a lot more complicated than that. But Jessica always makes things more complicated anyway. But I do really still enjoy flying. It's still one of my favorite things to kind of experience. I love every aspect of it, from takeoff to landing. And if there's rough weather or something, I'm just like, yeah, let's do this. I'm the weird guy that, like, if something strange is happening, I'm excited about it. I don't know why. But yeah, the flying thing for me is fantastic now. For the most part, it's a lot more enjoyable, at least on my part. Because I'm a lot more comfortable now. Although that first flight that we ever did to London a few years ago, that was an absolute pain. I don't know what it is like. We flew Virgin out, and it was so packed tight. I was like, oh no, I didn't want to do that again. And so we didn't use them again. But side note, most of the time when Jessica and I were traveling, we were traveling to go see concerts because we still really love concerts. Now, yes, this last year has not been good for concerts, and we haven't been anywhere to see concerts. But I will tell you this. You go to an arena, you go to some type of a venue like that, a dome or even baseball field or whatever it happens to be. There's a lot of places that have the stadium seating and whatnot. most of the time I never fit in these. In fact, even sometimes now I don't necessarily fit that great, but those things are designed for normal sized people, and I am certainly not a normal sized person. But for me, it was very interesting because you can get what I called the fat upgrade. Yes, I dubbed it the fat upgrade. And in fact, I called the getting on board first a fat upgrade as well. What the fat upgrade entailed was I don't fit in a lot of these seats. So, and Jessica and I knew that I didn't fit in most of these seats. We would still buy those tickets or get whatever she could. I'd go sit there, do my thing, not fit in the seat. And then you go and you find somebody in customer service and you look all dejected and you're like, I'm really fat and I don't fit in these seats. And then they will generally try to move you to a place that is more comfortable. A lot of times it's actually in like a separate section that has chairs and stuff like that, like, you know, like fold out chairs, like usually decent like metal fold out chairs. And they would move you there, and so that was usually about halfway up closer most of the time, or at the very least down at the bottom of the section that we were in. And so it made it a lot more fun for me. It's so horrible, I know, but yeah, you go to the customer service, you tell them you're really fat and you don't fit in the seats. They hook you up going somewhere else, and then you get to sit there and chill and like actually look at it. Best one I ever had though was actually at Lou Fest, which was a local music festival that happened. I was sitting there, or I was standing there because it's outside, but they've got this extra like little raised section for some chairs, and I was like, this was after I hurt my back. And I told the guy who was standing by, I was like, dude, I hurt my back like a little while ago. Is there any chance I could get one of these seats? And I was just asking like to get the seat so I could set it down in front. And he was just like, yeah, come on up. Like, and so he put me up there with Jessica and we got to like look over the crowd. It was awesome. I loved that. It's so horrible. I know it's so bad, but it is what it is at the time. I don't have a lot of those problems now. I'll still generally go to the back of whatever the venue happens to be and lean against the wall just because I don't like standing around for long periods of time. But it all sort of, it's really funny for me just because I have all of those memories now of like those things of like, you know, sitting in nicer seats or whatever it happens to be, and enjoying concerts with Jessica and her not having to worry about me being comfortable or not, which is a big thing for her. She likes to take care of other people. And so, yeah, that's really all I got as far as like the travel stuff is concerned. I covered my bases, driving on a car, train, plane. I've been on the Goodyear blimp before, but I was a child at the time. Don't really remember anything about that. Not to mention, blimp isn't exactly a normal mode of transportation these days. I kind of wish it was. I would totally take a blimp ride like across the country, you know, or something like that. That would be fantastic. If some company out there is developing that, I want to do it. But yeah, I love that kind of stuff. Actually, speaking of travel on random things, I've been on one of like the MASH helicopters before, but I was also a child then, you know, like with the glass bubble like canopy and whatnot. Awesome experience. Loved that. Don't really remember a whole lot of it, but I remember being absolutely gleeful about the entire experience. I guess, yeah. And, you know, but that's it. I'd love to do a hot air balloon one day just because, I mean, that'd be amazing. But yeah, that's really it as far as traveling is concerned for me. I know I could probably hit a couple more points or a couple more bases or whatever. But I think you guys get the point that for me, traveling before, while fun, was a pain. It was complicated. It had its issues. And while I wasn't as bad as other people, it was still frustrating for me because I prefer things that are efficient. But it was extremely frustrating for Jessica, and it was extremely embarrassing for her at some points. And it was just, it wasn't every like sort of magical thing that I wanted it to be as far as I was concerned. You know, I like things to be quick and efficient, and I don't have to hassle, and I don't have to be a bother to anyone. I don't want to ever be a bother to anybody. That's why if people offer me things or try to do things for me, I'm just like, no, I can do it. I can do it myself. It's fine. And so, yeah, But I think that's pretty much it for this one. Please hit the subscribe button and click the bell notification that is right next to it so you can get notified whenever we post a new video. Also, you can find us on social media, Facebook and Instagram. You can message us on there and send us any kind of questions or comments. If you have any horrible travel stories, please send them my way or comment down below. You can also like and share the video if you so choose. I don't know exactly who wants to watch this kind of a video, but maybe somebody out there does. Maybe some guy out there who's close to my size at the time is like, needs to absolutely hear that, you know what? Yes, it does suck. It is bad to travel sometimes, but it is possible to make it a little bit better and make it a little bit easier to travel and have a lot more fun. So I think that's all I got. Jessica's got nothing to give on this one. I will see you next time on Crocs in the Kitchen. Bye.